Hi, I'm Sarah Drange.
And I'm Michael Drange.
We've been attending South Hills Burbank for 7 years. When I moved to LA, I came out here to take a job as an assistant to a television producer. I took a part-time job nannying on the weekend. At the time, I was attending a church over in Wilshire, and they had talked about the importance of tithing, but I made $550 a week before taxes. I learned so much from this family about the importance of God in the home and God in the world. And one of the things that they did while I worked for them was they donated a extremely large amount of money to a church that they didn't attend in Beverly Hills to keep this church up and running. And when I talked to the mother about it, she was just talking freely about it at dinner one night. She was like, well, we're tithing. And it was like coming to me from all angles now because my church had been talking about it that I was attending at the time. There was a 90-day challenge at the church. And I thought, all right, I'll try. I'll do my best. And so $55 a week, which was before taxes, I started giving to the church. And within the 90-day challenge, my salary doubled. And then with the babysitting job on the weekend, I was able to tithe more than double what I had started. It was very clear to me at that point in time that giving God the 10% that God had given to me back showed my faith, and in turn was showing to me that I could trust that if I gave my money to God, I would be taken care of.
Before, for me, I was single, selfish, and self-centered, and just ran around with a group of friends, working on TV shows, music videos, commercials, rock shows, and we just traveled a lot, and I just did whatever I wanted. It became boring. It was all about me, and I was miserable. So it wasn't until I started to seeking God and believing in God that I really wanted to make, a change in my life. So we do also teach our kids to be generous with their time and with our home, with everything. And we do that as well. We try to be a service to others and to live that type of life. It's something that makes myself feel really good inside, is to be able to help other people that need it.
My name is Hope.
What's your name?
Mikey.
So this is the family, Mikey and Hope, and these are their jars.
Each kid has 3 jars, and they say their names on them. So Mikey Spend, Mikey Save, and this just says Give. I couldn't fit
Mikey Give.
Yeah, Mikey Give. And Hope has her own 3 as well. And so whenever they get birthday money or allowance, if they do their chores, they divide it up and they put 10% in the Give jar, and then
50% in here and 40% in the Save.
Very good, Mikey. And they take their Give jars to church and put it in the envelopes, and we keep these jars in our kitchen. It was something that we actually heard here at South Hills. We both believe you have 2 choices. You can keep the money and live in fear, or you can send it out and trust God.
And really at the end of the day, that's really what I want. I want to have peace, I want to have usefulness, and I want happiness. And I feel like I get all 3 of those things by tithing.
Good morning, Riverside. How are we doing? Yeah, love it. Pastor Ozzy did an amazing job. Oh, look at you guys. You guys, look at you. Quickly just moved into my favorite campus. Nicely done. Nicely done. So before I get started, just want to just praise Pastor Ozzy and his wonderful wife, Anna, for doing an amazing job leading this church. You guys truly are blessed to have amazing campus pastors who love you, who do everything they can throughout the week to pray for you and prepare a place for you to come and connect with God. And not only that, all the activities that they're doing beyond Sunday to make sure that you're getting connected, diving deeper into a relationship with God, diving deeper into connections with people. Those are the greatest tools that you can implement to your life to get the most out of life. One of the things that this culture and the enemy wants to see from you is the enemy wants to see you alone, wants to see you stressed, wants to see you have anxiety, wants to see you be depressed, because that is what the enemy wants to produce. But God wants to see you connected, wants to see you glowing, and wants to see purpose in your life, and wants to see joy in your life. And so in order to do that, you got to follow God's principles. God's principles has been laid out for you to get the most out of life. And so coming together on a weekend experience provides that place for you to worship and connect with your Creator. And then what you do after Sunday creates that space for you to dive deeper into God's Word and dive deeper into connections with others. And they're doing an amazing job creating those spaces for you. But at the end of the day, we individually have to take those steps in order to allow God's principles to take action into our hearts. Sound good? So let's give them a huge round of applause for the amazing job that they're doing. And then once again, I just want to remind you guys how blessed you are again, not just for Pastor Ozzy and his wife Anna, but for the amazing job Carlos and the band did. You guys are killing it, absolutely killing it. I mean, that band was on fire today. I was like, man, these guys are making me want to dance, making me want to jump. Like, I was feeling a little down and out this morning, but all of a sudden I feel good and I'm ready to go. I'll tell you the story later, but ultimately it was a journey getting here. I didn't think I was going to make it, but that's a story for afterwards. It's a story for afterwards. Thank you guys for being here for our series. We are really wanting to, like I said, make sure that we do everything possible as a church to expose our church to the principles of what God has designed for each and every one of us. The principles that God has for us is for us to live life and live it to the fullest. To live life in a way where you were created to get the most out of your life. The gifts and talents and abilities that God has given you, there's a purpose for that. The purpose of what you do with your life and how you spend your time and how you spend your energy and how you spend your money and how you spend your days and how you spend your space in your head about what you think about and what you worry about. All of that has a plan and a purpose in God's will so that you can enjoy and have peace and purpose, like I said earlier. And so we're diving into one of the most hot topics in America, which is finances. Finances is the cause of a lot of stress in people's life. It's the cause of a lot of anxiety in people's life. It's the cause of a lot of broken marriages and broken families. It's the cause of a lot of people's depression. And so it would be foolish for us to ignore all that and not talk about what God's principles are for finances so that you don't have to be a customer of those depression, anxiety, stressful moments of what every other American is living. And so what I want to do is I just want to ask you a few questions. Do you ever wonder what you would own if you never knew what everyone else owned? Think about this for a second. Think about everything you own. How much of that would you still own if you didn't know what everybody else owned? And as you think about that question, let me ask you another question. Do you ever wonder how much other people you know and don't know, actually, so people you know and people you don't know, influence what you buy? Have you ever thought about that? The people that you know and the people that you don't know. Social media, Super Bowl game, we're all going to watch that today. We're going to see Taylor Swift every 13 seconds, which is going to drive me crazy. And so it's like, I want to watch football. I don't want to watch Taylor Swift react to everything that Kelsey or Travis Kelsey does or doesn't do. But at the end of the day, you're going to be influenced. You're going to be influenced. That's why the media is on her every 13 seconds, because she's an influencer. So they're intending to influence you. They're intending to influence you. So have you ever thought about the things that you buy because of the influences that you are exposed to? Have you ever thought about what you would want if you didn't know what everyone else already has? You ever think about that? What would you want if you didn't know what everyone else has? Think about how much more money you would have saved if you didn't know what others spend their money on. Think about how much money you would have saved, how much greater your savings account would be if you had no idea what everyone else was spending money on? If you didn't see my cool hat, if you didn't see my cool shoes, if you didn't see what I was spending money on or Pastor Ozzy was spending money on, what would you be saving if you didn't know what others were spending money on? And here's a greater question. The greatest question here is, how much more would you be giving away to people in need or to others, to organizations that are doing great things in people's lives? How much more would you be giving away if you didn't know what others had? So here's the problem. The problem is this. We know too much. We know too much. And the problem with knowing too much is that it is dangerous and it creates discontent. It is a danger zone to know too much. It is dangerous to know what everyone else is spending money on, what everyone else is wearing, what everyone else is buying, what everyone else is driving, where everyone else is living, what their upgrades have been, what their upgrades have not been. It is dangerous to have all that information because it creates the opportunity to be discontent. And then when we're discontent, what does it do? It creates spending in things that we probably wouldn't have spent if we weren't discontent. Now, I am very guilty of a stressful spender. When I am stressed, I tend to want to go shop. That's why I have so many hats. That's why I have so many shoes. Mainly hats and shoes. But I know when I'm feeling stressed and when I'm feeling overwhelmed, my escape is to want to go shop. And so I know that about myself, so I have to control that about myself. But the reality is a lot of people don't realize that they ultimately have some area in their life where there's discontent. And I don't know what the area is for you. I don't know if it's shoes or if it's hats or if it's cars or if it's remodeling your home again or if it's remodeling your kitchen again or if it's walking into this closet that's full of clothes and saying I have nothing to wear. I don't know. I don't know what it is for you, but the reality is because you know so much, it creates discontent. And when you feel stress or anxiety, you tend to want to lean into an area to spend in areas you probably shouldn't be spending in or as much, right? And so I often share these conversations with people with helping them realize that you may not know this, but you are a part of the largest community and the richest community in the world. From a global perspective, most of us are in the top 10% of the richest people in the world. And let me help you understand this. Here's how. If you, right now, whether in your pocket or in your purse or sitting next to you, if you have a little technology that costs a few $100s or maybe several $100s that you can send a text on or receive a phone call on, or you can Google and do some research, if you own that and that's with you right now, you're in the top 10% of the richest people in the world. From a global perspective, not from Riverside, California, from a global perspective, you're in the top 10%. Now let me move you into the 9%. You ready to go to the 9% of richest people in the world? You're going to feel a lot better about yourself. Thank you for coming to church today. So here you go. If you own at least one car, whether you're leasing it or buying it or it's paid off, however it is, if you have access to a vehicle that can take you from point A to point B, you're in the top 9% of the richest people in the world. Top 9%. Are you ready to go to the 8%? Who wants to be a part of the 8% of the richest people in the world? All right, here we go. If you can get into that car after church today and drive by several restaurants and say, no, I'm not feeling that. Not chicken today. I had chicken yesterday. No, I don't really want fish. I had fish a couple of days ago. I'm just not craving it. Oh, a burger sounds amazing. Oh, where do I want to have a burger? No, not In-N-Out. The lines are too long. Okay, what about, Islands has fantastic burgers. Let's go to Islands. Islands, it's puffy, and it's nice bread, and it's soft, and I just love the customer service there. I'm going to go to Islands. And you can drive that car to Islands, and you can park, and you can walk in, and you can say, I'm here. Seat me as soon as possible. I hate to wait. Which we wouldn't say that, but it is what we're thinking, right? None of us want to walk in and say, it's an hour and a half wait. Oh, yeah, no problem. I'm a patient person. I'll sit here for an hour and a half. None of us would like to do that, right? If it's more than 10 minutes, we're out. So I want to be seated, and I want to be seated in less than 10 minutes. Yes, sir, right away. Bring yourself right over here. They find you a table. They walk you over there. You sit down. They hand you a menu, and then you get to pick that menu up. And you get to go down the items and say, no, don't want that one. Yes, maybe that one. Yep, okay, we're going to go with this one. And then you get to choose your burger. And then the person that's taking your order is standing there waiting patiently with a notepad and says, yes, sir, whenever you're ready, I would like to have the burger with cheese and bacon and avocado, no veggies. That stuff's bad for me. And make sure it's warm, medium, cooked medium. Okay, yes, sir, right away, sir. And then they take that order. And they go back to the special place in the back of the restaurant where there's little workers back there that are making all this stuff. And then they hurry really quick to make it because they don't want to upset you. Because if it takes more than 9 minutes to bring your food out, you're never going to come back to that place again. And so sure enough, they bring that out. And they give you that burger. If you get to have that experience and you get to be a part of that decision-making process, you are a part of the 7% of the richest people in this world. Do you want to go to the 6%? If you take your one car to its own home, we call it a garage in our land, but if your car has its own little home, you're a part of the 6%. And guess what? If you get to walk into a home where you can turn on this valve where water comes out, and you get to choose the temperature of the water, like hot, cold, warm, you're a part of the 5%. Once again, what's the problem? The problem is you know too much. You know too much, which creates discontent. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 8 says, so if we have enough food and clothing, let us be content. If we have enough food and clothing, let us be content. Now, I'm going to just be really honest with you, and I'm going to be very vulnerable. This is not easy for me. Contentment is not easy for me. Why? Because I know too much. And why else is it not easy for me? Because when I'm under stress and anxiety, what do I want to do? I want to buy more hats. I want to buy more shoes. So this is not an easy scripture for me to live by. I will be very honest with you on that. So I often tell God, like, hey, do we really need to have the word content in the Bible? Like, what's wrong with wanting more and going further and bigger and greater? And then God will say, there's nothing wrong with going further, bigger, and greater if it's not just for your benefit. It's like, you have to be so mean about how you say things to me, God? It's like you could have found a nicer way of saying those things, but that's how I need to hear it, right? 1 Timothy verse 6 through 8 says, so if we have enough food and clothing, let us be content. I just shared with you that you are a part of probably somewhere in the top 10% of the richest people in the world. Some of you even moved to the top 5%, and maybe one or two of you maybe would even be lower in the 4 or 3 or 2%. But the problem is knowing too much and having the danger of discontent. So here's what I want you to understand. There's one thing I want you to walk away with today. When you leave this service and you get into your car and you go watch the Super Bowl and you go see the Chiefs lose, I want you to remember what they... honestly, I used to be a Chiefs fan. I used to like the Chiefs. I wasn't a fan, I'm a Rams fan, but I used to cheer on the Chiefs whenever the Rams would lose, just like we did this year in the first round. But whenever my Rams were out, I would cheer the Chiefs on. But I can't stand having the camera go to someone every 13 seconds. Like, I'm not here to watch someone's reaction to the game. I'm here to watch the game. Anyways, there's one thing I want you to remember when you walk out these doors. When you walk out these doors and you get into your car and you drive by all those restaurants and you get to watch the football game and you get to dip into the chips and dip and whatever else you're going to, here's what I want you to understand. If you do what culture says about money, you are going to get culture-like results. If you do what culture says about money, you are going to get culture-like results. But if you do what the Redeemer says about money, you are going to get Redeemer results. Culture will tell you that you don't have enough. Culture will tell you that you need to spend more. Culture will tell you that when the camera is over on this lady up on the top row over here, whatever she's wearing, you need to have. Culture will tell you that you just need more because what you have is not enough. And here's what else culture is going to tell you. Culture is going to tell you poor people aren't happy. You need more money, more money, more money, more money. Culture is going to tell you this. I need to make as much as I possibly can so I can buy everything I want. That's what culture is going to tell you. Culture is also going to tell you there's always something bigger and better out there. There's always something bigger and better. There's always a newer something, a newer phone, and the newer iPhone 19000X 42.6 that has, a camera's lens all over the back of it. It doesn't exist yet, but it's coming, and then you're going to get in line and buy it, right? Because culture says your phone is no longer relevant once the new one comes out, right? Don't tell me you don't do it. I've seen you in line as I drive by thinking there's no way. All right, and here's what else culture tells you. Culture tells you, hey, if you don't have the money for it right now, that's okay. We came up with a system that you can buy what you want even if you don't have the money right now. Don't worry about what we're going to charge you later for it, but you get to use this little plastic card and then run it through this little machine and buy what you want even if you don't have the money. You get to have it right here and right now because that's what culture tells you. Don't be patient. Don't be smart. Don't save and then buy. Buy right here, right now, even if you don't have the money. We'll figure out how to get you to live by our cultural standards. And then stress and anxiety and depression and family problems and marital problems and debt and debt and debt and debt. And then you're wondering, why am I having so many financial problems? Because you're living by cultural standard. But God's principles, the Redeemer's principles, has a completely different stance. See, culture tells you that this is last. Giving money away, why would we think of others? That's ridiculous. And then culture will tell you, it might be a good idea to save, but here's what culture really wants to tell you. Spend on you. You are the most important person in this world. Spend on yourself. Buy yourself a house. Buy yourself a bigger house. Buy yourself a car. Buy yourself a newer car. Upgrade your car. Buy yourself clothes. Buy yourself shoes. Buy yourself hats. Buy yourself purses. Buy yourself phones. Buy yourself. You are the most important person in the world. This is what culture says. And if you have any extra, put it into savings. Because everything you buy might eventually at some point break down, and you might want to fix those things with things that we're going to provide for you to continue to spend on things that they have. And then it says, if you happen to have anything left, if you happen to have something left over, put it way down here in the give to the other people section or organizations. This is the mind and the heart of culture. And this is what culture is all about. Now, 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 9 and 10 says, but people who long to be rich fall into temptation and are trapped by the many foolish and harmful desires that plunge them into the ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And some people craving money have wandered from the true faith and pierced themselves with many sorrows. So let me just be crystal clear. God isn't saying that money is bad. Money is actually very useful and very helpful. When we use money in the right ways, God does amazing things with it. Changes lives, transforms hearts. There is great things that happen when we are smart and we do follow God's principles. The problem is when we follow culture's principles. Culture has a completely different mindset. It's not to transform hearts and change minds and impact people for eternity. It's to drain you, make you depressed, make you anxious, make you stressed, and make sure you never have enough. That is culture, where God has a completely different mindset. Now, I'm going to read to you a story, and this is a story in the Bible from Adam and Eve. They had two sons, Cain and Abel. If you've ever heard that story, it's an old story from the early times of how life got started. And so here, Adam and Eve, you're going to notice they, as parents, taught their two boys something that needs to be taught to every child. because kids naturally don't learn this on their own. And here's the story. In Genesis chapter 4, verses 2 through 5, it says, later she gave birth to his brother named Abel. She first had Cain, then later she had Abel. When they grew up, Abel became a shepherd, while Cain cultivated the ground. When it was time for the harvest, Cain presented some of his crops as a gift to the Lord. Now, real quick, I just want to make sure you're following along. When it was time for the harvest, meaning when it was time to get paid, meaning when their work and effort and it came down to becoming resources. When it was time for the harvest, Cain presented from his crops a gift for the Lord. Abel also brought his gift, the best portions of the firstborn lambs from his flock. The Lord accepted Abel and his gift, but did not accept Cain and his gift. This made Cain very angry, and he looked dejected. So what's the difference here? Why did God accept one of the son's gift, but did not accept the other son's gift? Well, before I get into that, first of all, I just want to be super clear. Parents taught their children to give. Adam and Eve taught their kids, hey, whatever we have, really, it belongs to God. We cultivate it. We get to use it. We get to multiply it. But at the end of the day, all this belongs to God. What your strength, your energy, what you're given, it belongs to God. He gave it to you. So what you do with it, it really is coming from Him. And so the parents taught the boys this, which is why they presented a gift and they brought their gift to God. If you've ever been a parent and you've ever raised kids, that's not natural for kids. Kids don't naturally just say, hey, look at everything I have. I'm going to present this and give this to other kids or other people. They don't do that. What do? They say, hey, this is mine. Mine. If you try to take it, whoa, mine. In our hearts from the very young, the human nature is mine. Me. I, as a father, had to break that mindset and still continue to break that mindset in my three boys because they naturally want to hoard. They naturally want to just think about themselves. And I got to peel their hands off and say, hey, this is not who we are. This is not who God has raised us to be. This is not who God is. We need to learn to be more like God. And so I had to teach them the principles of not mine and hoarding, but using what God has given us and sharing and giving. So that's exactly what's happening here. Cain and Abel both brought their gift, except there was a difference in how they brought it. Cain was him first, had all of his resources and took it upon himself, and then got the leftovers and then brought it to God. And then notice what Abel did. This is very important. Abel also brought a gift, the best portion of the firstborn. The best portion of the firstborn of the lambs of the flock. So here's what Abel did. Abel said, okay, spend's going to go last, save's going to go second, and God is going to go first. This is the principle that Abel followed, which is why God said, I accept your gift because you have the right heart and the right mind behind what I have already given you. So culture says, spend, save, give. God says, give, save, spend. Now, this was not easy to teach my children. It was not. When my twins were about 8 years old and my little guy was 6, we used to give them chores to help them, make some money and they can buy their games and their toys and all that stuff. And so I remember when it was time for payday, at the end of the month, we would pay them for all their chores, and it was like $20 a month. And I'd bring all $1 bills. And I'd give them all those $1 bills, and I'd line them up say, okay, Ezra, all right, you did all your chores this month. Here you go, $20, and I'd count out the $1 bills. Okay, what do we do first? All right, we tithe them. Okay, $2 goes into the tithe bucket. And we had these little jars. $2 goes into the tithe bucket. I'll put it up here. And then it's okay, that's first. God first, tithe. Okay, what do we do next? He said, save. Okay, $2 goes into the save bucket. All right, so now you have $16 to do whatever you want with it. You can buy baseball cards, you can buy candy, you can do whatever you want with it. You don't have to spend it. You could put it in the save bucket. And then I'd go on to the next child. And then I have twins, so my son Caden was the next. Caden, I love Caden. He's a special, special child. But the gift of being wise with money, he has not been blessed with that gift. So he was the kid who would spend the money before he even got it. Have you ever met anyone like that? Who just already owes money before they're even getting paid? So sure enough, like Caden, I'm like, okay, Caden, you did your chores. Here's your $20. And then I'm like, okay, what do we do first? All right, we tithe. All right, $2 goes to tithing. Okay, what do we do next? We save. Okay, $2 goes to savings. Okay, here you go. Here's your $16. Oh, wait, you owe mom $4 for that app. Okay, you owe mom $6 for that game. Oh, you mom, and then he's left with like $2. And he's like, oh my gosh. I'm like, yeah, buddy, don't spend it before you get it. Because if you do that, this is what you're going to be left with. Learn to do this, right? And so that's my special child. I know that some of you don't even know what I'm talking about because I'm sure all of you guys are super smart about making sure you don't buy things that you don't have money for, right? It's a nature, right? It's a nature. Some of us have to learn that, right? So then I got my third child. His name is Caleb, too. His name is Caleb. And Caleb's a planner. And Caleb has already in mind what he's going to buy, but he doesn't do it before he gets the money. So sure enough, he does chores. Here's your $20, Caleb. All right, $2 goes to tithe, $2 goes to save, and then here's your $16. And he's looking at the $16, and he's like, Dad, it's like, I was going to buy a game, but it's $19. I said, okay. He's like, but I only have 16. I only have $2 in savings. I'm like, no problem. I said, next month, you'll be able to buy that game. So put your money in savings. The next month, when you get paid, you'll have enough to buy your game. And he's like, but all my friends are playing that game now. Now imagine telling an 8-year-old, hang in there. Next month, you'll be able to play with all your friends. And now he starts like crying, and he's mad. And I'll never forget this moment. And he's just like, Dad, why does God need my money? And I was like, excuse me? And he's just like, yeah. He's like, why does God need my money? This is what's wrestling through his head. I wanted to buy a game. I only have $16. I would have enough to buy my game if I didn't give my money to God, is what he was thinking. And so then I said, Caleb, let's have a conversation. And I said, where did you get this money that you're holding in your hands? He's like, you gave it to me. And I said, why did I give it to you? He's like, because I did my chores. And I said, okay, so you did your chores, which is the work, and then I gave you the money. Who am I? He's like, you're my dad. I'm like, okay, so I, your dad, gave you chores and gave you the money for the chores. Yeah? Who gave you your dad? And he looks at me. He's like, what? Yeah, I'm your dad. Where did I come from? Who gave you your dad? It's like, God. Okay, so then God created me and made me your father, that I, in turn, created chores and gave you income for your chores. So where did all this really come from, Caleb? It came from God. So who does all this really belong to, Caleb? It belongs to God. So then whose money is it, Caleb? It's God's money. And how much does God allow you to keep and hold on to? Most of it. He didn't know 80%. He said most of it. And I said, Caleb, you're learning a lesson right now. And the lesson is this. You're going to be discontent, and you're always going to be looking at it's never enough if you continue to look at why does God need my money? But if you start to look at God and realize that everything you have is because of him, you're always going to have enough. And it was a process for him to go through. That was not easy. And trust me, I've had conversations with grown adults when I have this process for them. And it's still not easy for grown adults who have not been living by God's principles. Malachi chapter 3, verse 10 says this, bring all the tithes into the storehouse, so there will be enough food in my temple if you do, says the Lord of heavens and of armies. I will open up the windows of heaven for you. I will pour out my blessings so great you won't have enough room to take it in. Try it. Put me to the test. This is the only time in the entire Bible that God says, test me. You want to test my principles? Go right ahead. Put me to the test. I am so confident, God is saying, that if you live by my standards, I can do more with your life with only 80% than what you can do with your entire life if you were to take control of all 100%. What God is saying is this. You try to do it your way, culture has a theory for that. Remember what I said? If you do what culture says about money, you are going to get culture-like results. If you do what God, the Redeemer, says about money, you are going to get Redeemer results. So what results do you want? You want culture results? Anxiety, stress, depression, fear, never enough, never content, always got to have upgrades and got to have more? Or do you want Redeemer results? Peace, joy, contentment, having enough, being taken care of, having God's anointing and blessings over your life because you're following his principles. You're following his boundaries. God can't do anything when you're not following his principles. When you try to take control on your own and you do it your way, there isn't anything he can do for that. He could only bless you and anoint you and give you the results of biblical standards when you follow his principles. And so here's what I want you to do as we get ready to close. I want you to think about, if you have not taken the step of testing God with his biblical principles, I want you today to walk out these doors taking this step. There's a card on your chair, and we call it the 90-day challenge. And the reason why we call it the 90-day challenge is because of this. Because I want to challenge each and every one of us to follow the godly principles for 90 days. Live by his principles. Put him to the test. And see if your life will change by the promises of God. God says your life will be different. Your life will be blessed. Your life will be, you will have enough. I will take care of you if you follow my principles. And so for 90 days, I want you to step into that challenge. I don't know where you're at. I don't know where you're at in God's principles. I don't know if you're living off of 100% on your own and not saving or giving. I don't know if sometimes you give, sometimes you save, and sometimes you just, you hold on to everything. I don't know. And I don't need to know. That's between you and God. But what I am asking today is I'm challenging you to follow God's principles. If you have not been following God's principles and tithing 10% and saving 10% and living off the rest for 90 days, try it. Try it for 90 days. If you have casually been giving sometimes and not giving other times, and you're inconsistent with your giving, for 90 days, be consistent. Or if you're like myself, who live by these principles, tithe 10%, save 10%, live on the rest, I'm going to challenge you the same way I challenge myself. Is it time to take the next step? Is it time to go 11%? Is it time to go 12%? I've been doing that challenge since God's been blessing his principles. I've been stepping into that challenge because what I know this was a starting point for God. It wasn't the end point. It was the understanding that if I follow his principles, I will always be in the category of having enough. I have to learn to be content, but I have to follow his principles if I want God's anointing and blessings. So today, as you think about this and pray about this, I want you to watch this video and hear this story so that you can have some time to read this card, fill it out before you go. Let's watch this.
South Hills Church, I just want to take a moment and say thank you for watching our service online. Whether you're watching it for the first time or you're watching it again because you enjoyed the service so much from the weekend, I'd like to take a moment and dive into our giving. Every week we give people the opportunity to give back and give to the local church so that God can continue to bless your lives and bless your finances. Here at South Hills, we believe that everything comes from God. We believe that he's the one that chose us and brought us into this world, gave gave us our gifts and talents and abilities. And I just want you to know that when we give, we are giving back what God has already given to us. If you've ever seen any of our envelopes at a South Hills campus, you'll see on there that it says, every week at South Hills, your generosity is giving people the opportunity to live a better story. And there's a scripture on there in Matthew chapter 6, verse 21 that says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So I want to encourage you today to click down below and set up your giving, whether it's for the first time or whether you're doing reoccurring giving. We have 4 ways to give here at South Hills. 1, you can do it in person at any of our campuses through an envelope. Or 2, you can actually text any amount that you would like to 84321. And the 3rd way is to download our Church Center app. I encourage you to do this one because the Church Center app gives you opportunity to stay connected with our church and your campuses. It's a great tool and resource for you to know what's going on. And the 4th way to give is to give online. You can go to southhills.org/give and you can set up your giving there. Whether you're a guest of our church or whether you are a member of our church, or whether you simply just like to watch our services, I encourage you to trust God with your finances so that He can bless and anoint your finances, and you can be trusting God in this journey of living life to the fullest. I love you, and thank you for watching our online service today.